Hello and welcome to the last Monday of January 2023. Can you believe that? And can you imagine the month ends tomorrow? That goes to show time waits on no man. So get the ball rolling with all you have to accomplish today. Hi there, I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. Coming up in today's magazine, a journey through the world of visual and performing arts, as well as ways to preserve our culture. More coming up right after this.
So many wish they could visit our shores. We live where they vacation. Brand Jamaica beckons all from the four corners of the earth.
Well, as a Jamaican, I have great pride in selling it. Your pride that you sell Jamaica with is something that it rolls off. Jamaica has so much to offer, and every time I have the privilege of bringing an executive down to Jamaica, an executive from an airline or a tour operator or a travel agency, and you take them across the country, the pride that they said, wow, I can't imagine, especially when it's their first time. Wow, I love this.
Build it. Cherish it. Our wealth is Brand Jamaica.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Monday, January 30, 2023. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke has released parts of a 2019 report into Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, by the Financial Services Commission, in keeping with a commitment to ensure transparency in the fraud investigations. SSL is under investigation for allegedly defrauding clients of billions of dollars over more than a decade.
We have committed to you that we will be transparent about all aspects of this, and we will support a thorough and independent investigation. The investigators are empowered to follow the facts wherever they lead.
According to the 2019 FSC report, the SSL was holding increasingly large client cash balances which were not being invested in securities and had failed to ensure that proper liquidity management procedures were in place. The report also indicated that SSL had failed to ensure that proper internal records were being maintained, preventing the FSC from confirming the adequacy of securities held by the company to cover client liabilities. The FSC, which had regulatory oversight for entities such as Stocks and Securities Limited, made several recommendations to address the issues. They included SSL executing an independent audit of on- and off-balance sheets for portfolio and client interests and delivering the audit findings to the FSC within 24 hours of receipt. It was further recommended that SSL take necessary actions to eliminate the $1.1 billion of client funds that were not invested in securities within 2 months of the directive. The company was also asked to provide the FSC with a board-approved policy to treat with client funds that had not yet been placed, and to refrain from accepting any new funds in relation to portfolio management services until the first 3 recommendations were satisfactorily addressed and verified by the FSC. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says steps have been taken to strengthen healthcare services at 3 hospitals that provide care for newborns. The measures are to ensure greater compliance with the recommended standards for staffing and infection prevention and control. The action is in response to an outbreak last year of 54 confirmed cases of Klebsiella infection among newborns, from which there were 12 deaths. A review was undertaken by a technical mission of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, between October 14 and 22, 2022. Facilities included the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, the Bustamante Hospital for Children, and the Spanish Town Hospital. Among other things, the review shows low staff-to-patient ratios and non-compliance with some infection prevention and control protocols. These include inadequate separation between infants, no medication preparation area, and inadequate storage of cleaning items. At a briefing last week to release the report, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa McKenzie said a series of infection prevention and control measures were taken.
The Infection Prevention Control Committee teams were activated at each level and started interventions from July 2022. The Ministry of Health recommended vigilance in the following areas: adequate case management for each case, the containment of the infection, that is the separation of the babies, environmental assessment, and active search for new cases. And it's the active search for new cases that resulted in increasing numbers of the infections detected. and protection of susceptible patients.
In addition, the CMO says staff were pulled from other areas to fill shortages. Critical equipment was procured, deep cleaning done on the nurseries, and there was an audit of hand wash stations and isolation of active cases. Dr. Bisesa McKenzie says the intervention has brought the numbers of infection down to zero.
The fact is that we must maintain very clean, almost sterile environments to prevent infections. Every effort must be made to equip the delivery room and special care nurseries with appropriate equipment and adequate staff to maintain strict infection prevention and control measures, especially in the high dependency areas.
The Ministry of Health says its collaboration with PAHO will continue to support advanced training for infection, prevention and control in critical areas and the design of targeted healthcare-associated infection surveillance programs that are consistent with services provided at inpatient facilities. The National Certification Body of Jamaica, NCBJ, is widening its certification program to include more clients and services. Among the new certification services is a Food Safety Management System, FSMS, designed to meet the needs of the export market for agricultural products. Through this project, the NCBJ will be able to assess and certify local and regional farmers and agro-processors with Global Good Agricultural Practices, Global GAP, accepted standards. It's a 2-year project being supervised by the Caribbean Development Bank and financed through a grant of over 157,000 euros provided by the European Union. Team leader Diane Allison says through the partnership, the NCBJ is implementing the ISO IEC 17065-2012 standard, under which the Global GAP certification falls.
The consultancy is to assist us to implement not just the requirement, but also to assist us in applying for the accreditation, training our auditors and technical experts or internal internal staff as well to understand the standard, the scheme itself, and also to present our application to the accreditation body so that we are able to get accredited to offer this certification to agro-processors, farmers alike across the Caribbean CARIFORUM countries.
It's also expected to improve the technical capacity of quality practitioners through training and enhance the financial sustainability of the NCBJ. Government continues its call for safe road usage among stakeholders in the transport sector to reduce the high levels of fatalities and crashes. 2022 recorded 488 deaths from 425 fatal crashes, and since the start of this year, 18 lives have been lost. With those numbers in mind, Transport Minister Audley Shaw has welcomed the Crash-Free Defensive Driving Workshop that was held by Grenell's Driving School last week. He says collaborations like this are needed among stakeholders.
This isn't just a government thing. It's a Jamaican thing that requires the support of private and public sectors, individuals and corporations, motorists and pedestrians, man, woman and child. As a government, we are committed to reducing fatal crashes on the nation's roads and enabling a safe and reliable transportation system.
It will help participants understand and anticipate the risks presented by the road environment. It will help participants understand the risks of speeding and encourage making adjustments to suit road conditions.
And finally, it was sheer joy for Movetta Clark, a 3-time stroke survivor, as she received the keys to a home under the government's new social housing program, NSHP. Prime Minister Andrew Holness presented Ms. Clark with her keys in Rosemary Castle last Wednesday. The St. Catherine resident says the $6.5 million house signals a fresh start for her family.
I just want to tell everyone thanks. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. I am so thankful for my home. And I will be taking very care of it, sir.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness says the NSHP is part of government's efforts to regularize and upgrade communities while addressing the social problems that may exist.
We do have an urban renewal element of the Ministry of Housing, where we look at replacing some of these zinc fences and improving the aesthetic and the visual quality that we see in the community. So we'll do some work on that.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
Original.
The visual arts landscape in Jamaica has grown tremendously over the last few years. Let's learn some more in our next feature.
The music often reflects what's happening in the visual arts. There are several visual artists that have designed album covers for a lot of other people like Peter Tosh and so on.
The head of the school at that time was Barrington Watson, and he set about putting in place a diploma program.
Since independence, visual arts expression in Jamaica has shifted significantly.
The story of Jamaican visual arts remains a strikingly colorful mixture. It's one that's layered with the details of artists stroking their brushes with intentionality. Some using their toothstone axes to create sculptures that tell stories of our blackness. Others whose pencils and chalks have mastered realism. And then more who are preserving elements of our historical experiences and newer issues. The last 60 years of Jamaica's visual arts landscape easily provides a fully immersive and stimulating experience. Along with independence came a new impulse to establish national identity through different areas of the country, including the visual arts.
The visual arts in Jamaica began not very long before independence, with the return of Edna Manley and Norman Manley to Jamaica. Edna Manley was herself an artist. When they returned to the island, she is famously remembered for remarking that she saw nothing that reflected the people of Jamaica. In other words, drawings that were being done by children in schools looked like European children. And she set about trying to change that with her own work and with the establishment of a school at the Institute of Jamaica. So independence and the early development of visual arts in Jamaica coincided greatly.
This interest to see more Black representation prompted the introduction of modern art ideas from artists like Albert Huey, Milton Harley, and Barrington Watson. Education in art, particularly through the School of Visual Arts, moved from part-time classes,
offering courses in sculpture and courses in painting. They started also ceramics with Cecil Ball. So there was Albert Huey and Cecil Ball were her co-founders of the school.
Introducing classes granting diploma, now with a new name, the Cultural Training Center, and later formalization by the state as the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts emerged with the degree granting status.
We were very fortunate to have leaders in the early days and after independence who thought that developing Jamaica culturally was very central to developing the country. Both Michael Manley and Edward Siaga were responsible for the Cultural Training Center.
In that period too, the National Gallery of Jamaica emerged, displaying and celebrating true Jamaican art. Through the gallery, many of our self-taught artists were able to exhibit under the label of intuitive.
People like Brother Brown, people like Capo. In Jamaica, we had a lot of artists who never went to school, but they could create images that had a certain emotional power.
It was David Boxer who coined the term intuitive to describe this aspect of Jamaican art, a term now recognized and used globally. He rejected such terms as primitive, naive, and folk, as he felt that there was a sophistication there of color and form that immediately challenged the very designation, primitive.
Also, in the 80s into the 90s, you began to see a little bit more of individual expression, more of artists producing artwork that reflected some of the turmoil of the late 70s and early 80s.
In the 1990s, the Caribbean region was opening up, and right along with that came a flood of Pan-Africanist ideas, which started to impact the visual art story our nation was still writing. That collision became evident in the work of popular artists such as Petrona Morrison, Stanford Watson, and Omari Ra. There was also the rise of monuments being produced from the hands of famous sculptors such as Basil Watson, Laura Facey, and Raymond Watson.
In the 2000s, you'll see more of what's happening in the diaspora and diaspora artists speaking about their own realities as well as their connections with Jamaica.
Also, Paint Jamaica's mural project took off in Kingston.
It has been the kind of cross-pollination again with the realities of the global artistic community, with people seeing the dynamism and the potential of murals beyond being a memorial, but ways to create urban renewal, ways to create environments of safety.
And our biennials continue to evolve with a changing artistic landscape.
The biennial has evolved in a way to be much more inclusive of the diaspora. So it's been reaching out in its scope, and that has been reflected in what is exhibited in this current biennial.
So that cross-pollination between Jamaicans living in different places has created an overarching trajectory of how our 60th year in the arts have come to a sort of global village in how Jamaicans are looking at themselves, both as Jamaicans at home and abroad.
In this next feature, you'll learn about an aspect of culture that many may not think about. Here's a hint. It has to do with preservation.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Headquarters House, home of the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. We're going to take you through some of the ropes in the methods in conservation, so please come along with us. Thanks for joining us in our conservation lab. We have here working with us Mr. Darrington Ferguson as well as Mr. Frank Gale, and we'll be looking at some of the methods they will be applying to different material types for the preservation of our material culture of Jamaica. First of all, we have here some cannonballs that are usually found with some extent of corrosion. Mr. Ferguson is actually removing mechanically some of the concretion from a cannonball, and after he has removed that, then we would wire it. This wired metal object we would then install in our electrolytic tank. In the process of electrolysis, what we are actually doing, we are primarily reversing the process of corrosion. Once it has been electrolyzed, it would look something like this. So we would then proceed to brush to remove any loose rust that would be left on it. We would then put the iron object in some pure water, which we call deionized water, and that would be heated to ensure that the metal itself would facilitate the extraction of any impurities that might be left in the body of the iron. After that, we would dry the iron object. Most times we dry it in alcohol, and that would remove the water from the body of the object. And after drying, we would take a substance we call tannic acid, applying several coats, and it would form somewhat a stable surface for the iron object. And then the final stage is waxing to provide a coating or a lacquer on the surface of the iron object. Here we have Mr. Gale. He's actually applying orthophosphoric acid to remove slight rusting or corrosion from the case of a sword. He is actually using what we call a chemical as well as a mechanical means of so doing. We have close to it the extractor system, which is used to remove harmful fumes from the atmosphere in order to make the environment a much healthier one in which and a safer one for us to work. Lead corrodes by forming mainly lead sulfide and lead carbonate. So we would be soaking it first of all in ammonium acetate, and that would basically remove within a few hours the lead carbonate. In order to remove any residue of ammonium acetate that might be left on the lead, we would then rinse it quickly for a short time period. Just rinse it in a bath of a very dilute solution of hydrochloric acid. If there are any corrosion left at that stage, then we would remove that mechanically, either very likely with a glass bristle brush. After that, we do as we would with the iron. Coming over here now, we have copper or copper material. We have been soaking this copper in a substance we prepare in the lab, which we call alkaline Rochelle salt. The alkaline Rochelle salt will remove from it largely what we call bronze disease. So we soak it in the solution. The chemical will dissolve the bronze disease. After that has been dissolved, then we would rinse in, for example, a dilute solution of sulfuric acid to remove any slight impurities or corrosion product that might be left there. After that, we will, as we do with the other metals, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you were well informed by the information we've imparted today, and you're welcome to join us at any time, particularly at our heritage sites. And when you see our heritage sites, you see the artifacts that are there, you will appreciate to a greater extent the effort that has gone into its preservation.
Entertainment and culture is seasonal. You will work, you tour in the summer, and then in the winter, you don't get much work. Or you may have a song that gets good play, and you are in demand, and then years will pass after that, and then you get no work, or you get very little work. It's not constant employment. And so many of our practitioners are not able to plan and save in a sustainable way. They don't have a pension. They don't have any guaranteed income. Sometimes you may be a hit, and sometimes what you do, as we'd say, a miss. So it's important that we provide that base, that sustainable base for the sector, because they have contributed tremendously to Brand Jamaica. They make Jamaica the brand that it is worldwide. And so I signed a contract with ECLA Jamaica Limited to start the process of establishing an insurance plan for entertainment sector, not just entertainers, but cultural practitioners. And this is a program that we've wanted to introduce for some time. This is similar to the excellent program we have, where we cover our sports personalities, those involved in the various disciplines of sports, where they have very good insurance coverage, life, health, and a number of other areas are covered, mental health. And so we have now signed this agreement to establish a similar program.
This is where we end today's show, but only for today. Do join us again tomorrow for another informative program right here on this same station. We're also available online at jis.gov.jm, and be sure to drop us a line. Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.